know, student engagement is one of the hardest things to get right, whether you're teaching in person or remotely. And it's not just about keeping them busy, it's about getting them thinking. A lot of times, students might end up as passive recipients. This sometimes happens more in online classes where they're stuck looking at a Zoom for a certain amount of time. And they're listening, maybe, but how do we get that active processing? When there's a lot of passivity, attention drifts, learning slows down, it gets shallow. It's hard to affect that long-term retention to make those changes that education is designed to do for people. So the real question is, how do we get every student engaged without making the lesson very complicated or overly gamified? Gamification, it has its points. The kids love a Kahoot. But for me, my goal is simpler. I want students thinking about the content. I want their cognitive load to be carrying the content, the skill we're learning, not the game, the points, the tokens, the leaderboard. So works what works best for me is making student thinking visible in real time and doing it with a workflow that is just really simple for teachers and for students. That's where the live session comes in. I start a live session. I share a link, students join, and now the lesson becomes interactive immediately with tools that are on the teacher host side and on the student response side that have developed over time in response to what people really need and what kinds of interactions are most useful. Students respond to the prompts. I can display answers anonymously in debrief for the class. We can discuss the real responses. Engagement is now not just participation, engagement is thinking, visible to everyone in a safe space where we protect anonymity. A student once told me that my live session apps are like a boring Kahoot. Well, that's exactly the point. No distractions, no extra layers, just a lesson, and students actively working through it with me. Let me show you what that looks like.
Let's begin here with an example of one of the live session apps at Innovation. For this one, the teacher can upload a PowerPoint and then present it in this interactive environment. This is just an example of one of several. Another live session can be launched from a test where test questions are put up this way, can be launched from the grammar exercise, can be launched from the etude. The workflow for the teacher, after setting up whatever changes they want in colors and so forth, is in the upper right, where we copy a student join link. This is a link you send to students, and if they're already logged in, they don't need to authenticate. They're already there, and they get this on their own screen to interact as you present. So as students watch the presentation proceed, periodically maybe there's a question, or this teacher just thinks of a question. There's several levels of interaction here. First is simple student reactions. Click on student reactions, and then students can give emojis, can answer with a quick note, and the quick notes appear as little bubbles on the top of the screen. Just quick questions you can ask students. If it's a multiple choice question, students can transmit letters in response. They can ask a question and so forth. Now, I find that students really like these, so I often have to shut them off from time to time. That's the quick notes. There is a random student selection feature that would randomly pick a student from the list. Scroll down the control zone and you can see all the students who are currently enrolled in this activity to participate. Teachers have their own little emojis that they can use to respond visually. In cases where longer, more thorough answers are called upon, click on Open. And then on the student side, there is a larger zone here to respond. Submitting response. You'll see there's a progress bar that shows the percentages of students who have responded, and when the time comes, click Close. One can view the responses now anonymously to facilitate discussion without fear of, being made fun of or something like that. It's also possible to get an AI generated synthesis of what the class said, just if you need to kind of take the pulse of what's going on without reading everybody's response. My experience is a lot of classes, kids want you to read and analyze every single response, and sometimes that can be very time consuming. So this is just, as I say, one of several varieties of interactive live session on the site designed to keep things moving along and keep people thinking more than just participating.